Hello, my dear friends, and welcome. Have you ever found yourself in a quiet moment, maybe late at night or during a busy day, and just wondered, does God still speak to us today? In this world, with all its noise, distractions, and doubts, it's a question that many of us hold silently in our hearts. We long for a connection, a sign, a whisper, to let us know we're not alone. Today, I want to share a beautiful story with you. It's a gentle yet powerful reminder that God does indeed still speak. Not always in thunder or grand displays, but often through the softest nudges, the most unexpected thoughts, guiding our hearts at just the right moment. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and join me as we explore the unforgettable experience of a young man named Ben, whose simple question to God received a miraculous and life-changing answer. Our story begins with Ben, a young man who, like many of us, was navigating his faith. One Wednesday evening, he went to his church for a Bible study. The pastor's message that night was all about listening to God and having the courage to obey. The words struck a chord deep within Ben. He sat there, a question blooming in his mind. Does God really still talk to people? It sounded so ancient, so distant. After the study, Ben stayed behind to volunteer for a bit, his mind still buzzing with the pastor's words. Later he joined some friends at a local cafe for coffee and pie. The conversation naturally turned to the evening's message. One by one, his friends began to share their own personal stories, moments where they felt God's guidance, His support, His unmistakable presence in their lives. Ben listened intently, absorbing every word. The hours flew by, filled with warm conversation and shared faith. By the time Ben looked at his watch, it was already 10 o'clock at night. He said his goodbyes and walked to his car. And as he sat in the driver's seat, the quiet of the night seemed to amplify the question in his heart. He decided to take a leap of faith. He bowed his head and prayed, God, if you still talk to people, please talk to me. I promise, I will listen carefully, and I'll do my absolute best to obey whatever you say. With that prayer on his lips, he started his car and began the drive home. He turned off the main street onto a familiar road that led toward his neighborhood. Suddenly, a strange thought popped into his head. Clear as day. Wait and buy a gallon of milk. He paused. He even said out loud, God, is that you? Silence. No booming voice. No flashing lights. Just the quiet hum of his car engine. He shook his head slightly, thinking it was just a random thought, and continued driving. But a moment later, the thought returned, just as persistent. Buy a gallon of milk. This time, Ben decided not to ignore it. He said to himself, Okay, Lord, if this is really you, I'll buy the milk. It wasn't a difficult command to follow. After all, he used milk for his cereal every morning. So, he pulled over at a nearby convenience store, bought a gallon of milk, and got back on his way, a little bewildered but obedient. As he neared his home, he approached the turn onto 7th Street. And then, another one of those feelings, a strong urge from within. Don't go down that street, Ben thought. Now this is just strange. This is the way I always go home. He ignored the feeling, crossed the intersection, and started to turn onto 7th Street. But the feeling came back, even stronger this time, almost like a mental roadblock. Do not go down 7th Street. He couldn't shake it. So, at the very next intersection, he made a U-turn. He chuckled to himself, speaking out loud to the empty car. Okay, God, I'll do it your way. This new route took him through less familiar streets, winding through a different part of town. As he was driving down one of these alternate roads, he felt an unsudden and an undeniable impulse to stop the car, right there. He pulled over, turned off the engine, and got out. He looked around. It was a quiet, semi-commercial area. Most of the lights in the houses were off. The world was asleep. Silence hung in the cool night air. He stood there, confused, wondering what he was supposed to do next. And then, the feeling came again, a clear instruction in his mind. Go and give the milk to that house across the street. Ben's eyes followed the silent instruction. He looked at the house. It was completely dark. It looked like no one was home, or if they were fast asleep. This felt different. This felt crazy. He opened his car door, sat back inside, and shut it. He argued with the feeling, Lord, this is madness. Those people are sleeping. If I ring their doorbell this late at night, they're going to be angry, and I'm going to look like a complete fool. He sat for a few moments, ready to drive away. But the feeling didn't leave. It was gentle but insistent. Go and give them the milk. Ben took a deep breath. He had made a promise. Okay, God, he whispered. If this is what you want, I'll do it. If you want me to look like a crazy person, then fine. I want to be obedient. I have no idea why you're doing this, but I'll trust you. If they don't answer right away, I'm coming straight back. With a mix of fear and faith, Ben grabbed the gallon of milk, got out of his car, and walked across the street. As he approached the front door, he could faintly hear some muffled sounds from inside. He took another deep breath and rang the doorbell. Within seconds, a man's voice called out from inside, Who is it? What do you want? A moment later, the door opened, and a man stood there in jeans and a t-shirt, looking like he'd just been woken up. He had a bewildered and slightly annoyed expression on his face. "What do you want?" the man asked again, his tone sharp. Ben, feeling incredibly awkward, simply held out the gallon of milk. "Here," he said, "I've brought this for you." The man stared at Ben, then at the milk. Without a word, he took the carton from Ben's hand. He turned and started speaking loudly in Spanish as he walked back inside. Ben stood on the doorstep, utterly confused. Then, a woman emerged from a room, holding the gallon of milk. The man followed her, and in his arms, he was holding a small, crying baby. And now, Ben could see tears streaming down the man's face. The man looked at Ben, his voice thick with emotion. "We were just praying," he said, his voice breaking. "We've had a very hard month. We ran out of money completely. We didn't even have enough to buy milk for our baby. I was just on my knees, praying and asking God, how will I get milk for my baby?" Then, his wife, her eyes also filled with tears, added, "I was praying that God would send an angel with some milk." She looked directly at Ben, her voice a whisper. "Are you an angel?" In that moment, everything clicked into place for Ben. The strange thoughts, the detours, the milk, it all made sense. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ben instinctively reached for his wallet, took out all the cash he had, and pressed it into the man's hand. He couldn't find any words. He just turned, walked back to his car, and sat down. And then, the tears came. Tears of awe, of gratitude, of understanding. He finally had his answer. God still answers prayers. And yes, God still speaks to us. Ben's incredible journey reveals a profound truth that we can all hold on to. God still speaks to the hearts that are willing to listen. His voice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a gentle nudge in our spirit. Sometimes it's a persistent thought we just can't seem to ignore. And sometimes, as it was for Ben, it comes as an unexpected opportunity to be a blessing to someone else. You see, God didn't just speak to Ben that night. He spoke through him. In that moment of obedience, Ben became an instrument of God's love. He became the answer to a desperate family's prayer. He became a living, breathing reminder that heaven still touches earth through the simple actions of ordinary people like you and me. When we choose to stay sensitive to God's leading, when we are willing to take that small step of faith even when it doesn't make sense, miracles unfold. Not just around us, but through us. Our obedience can be the very miracles someone else is praying for. Thank you so much for joining me for this heart-touching story today. I hope it inspires you to keep your heart open, your spirit attentive, and your faith active. You never know when a simple, seemingly random thought might be a divine invitation. Remember, your obedience could be someone else's answered prayer. If this message blessed you or encouraged you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it today. Let's continue to spread light and hope together. Thank you for watching, and may you be blessed. See you soon.